This episode is brought to you by the Denver Art Museum. Mark your calendars for a Halloween version of Untitled Artist Takeover on Friday, October 31st from 6 to 10 p.m. This late-night event features local creatives Mo Graham and Christina Maldonado Badhand, headlining a spooktacular all-ages evening filled with art, performances, and one-of-a-kind activities throughout the museum. Costumes are encouraged, but please leave your masks at home. Reserve your tickets today at denverartmuseum.org. That's denverartmuseum.org. This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center. Fall under the spell of Disney's worldwide phenomenon reimagined for the stage. Disney's Frozen is a powerful tale of sisterhood, acceptance, and finding the real meaning of true love. Bring the whole family to experience this uplifting winter adventure, playing November 1st through January 4th. Disney's beloved movie featuring Colorado actors and costumes, sets, and theater magic, all created at the Arvada Center. This show is recommended for children ages 4 and up. Get your tickets now at arvadacenter.org.
Today on CityCast Denver, Governor Jared Polis. While he may be in hot water right now with his party's left wing, Polis has become a national figurehead of sorts for a new political movement. Abundance. Inspired by the book by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, some liberals are painting him as a red tape-cutting, density-loving, get-things-done Democrat for a new era. But is that really who Jared Polis is? Some of these folks recently formed a group called the Abundance Network, and they invited me to moderate a fireside chat with Polis in front of a live audience last week. We discussed his record on housing density, RTD, nuclear energy, and we talked about his plans for the future, too. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Governor Jared Polis, hi.
Well, how are you, Paul? Good to see you.
I'm good. How are
That's
you?
great.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your
Oh,
experience.
I've made it. I'm on CityCast. That's exciting.
The pandering is welcome. Thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about this book and then a little bit about your experience. I think a lot of people here at least say they've read the book. Have you read the book, Governor?
I have, absolutely.
What'd you think about it?
It was good. I mean, it really describes some of the similar frustrations, the ones that we've had getting big projects done, like Front Range Passenger Rail being one of those. Obviously, our approach to housing, there's been a lot of fights over the years before this book was published, but the more people talk about it, get it out in the open, the better.
Yeah, I think the fact that it happened now when you've been working on this stuff for so many years is very interesting. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I want to talk to you about, because as these guys, Klein and Thompson, were on their press tour, they were always asked, who's doing it best? Who's doing the abundance agenda? And the one person they always said was Governor Polis in Colorado. How did that feel?
Well, that's flattering. That's great. You know, we never thought of calling it abundance. I don't know if that's the brand that will stick with it or not, but
do you not like it?
It's fine. I mean, I think it's about prosperity. It's about supply. It's also just common sense. Like we had, basically land use policies in the state from the 1970s, and the hardest kind of housing to build was anything other than single family. Like single family was the most expensive and the easiest to build, and then as a result there was very little multifamily duplexes, quadplexes, and so we said, let's just take a look at this for the first time in 50 years, and how could we really better prepare Colorado for more affordability, livability, and sustainability, kind of where those three overlap on the Venn diagram, and how people want to live with a quality of life. And so that's what kind of led to it, and I'm thrilled that there's sort of cavalry in the movement with the book and people talking about it nationally.
So the name, you're not the only person I've heard say it's not a good name. Do you have a preferred name?
Well, I don't
what do
know.
you call it?
My
Maybe
problem
this
is,
your thing.
me and my husband like Pose, if you ever watched that. And so I always think House of Abundance and Drag. Some of you, probably 4 of you get that reference. So I think it's like a drag house every time I hear it, which is great, but I'm not sure that'll like sell to the rest of the country.
My wife told me this might come up, actually. She's a big fan. She said this is
it's a great series. If you're looking for something to watch, Pose, or kind of late 80s, early 90s, drag scene New York, really great series.
All right. So the book, the book is fine. If you read the book, it's okay. But I don't want to talk about the book that much. I want to talk about you. As I was researching this, there's a story that I came across that has been told a few times. I think it was most fleshed out by your mom for an article in the Colorado Independent. She talked about when you were 11 years old, living in San Diego. Do you know this story that I'm talking about?
Saving the canyon, the open space.
Can you tell this story?
Sure.
I think this is an important story.
Well, and it's also, and I will tell the story. She tells it better than me because I was 11 or something.
I want to hear your side.
I mostly know her, but I also want to say that conservation and open space is entirely consistent and, in fact, empowered by our housing reforms. The alternative to what we're talking about doing in housing is exurban sprawl and taking over open spaces with larger plots and single-family homes, worse from a water perspective, worse from a traffic perspective, worse from an open space perspective. So yes, we lived in San Diego at the time. I was born in Boulder, went through most of my school years in San Diego, and there was an open space canyon near our house. Me and the neighborhood kids used to hike in it very often. And developers, of course, eyeing this, wanted to build out, multi-million-dollar homes there, or whatever it was going to be. And there's a city council meeting where they had to consider this. And I went there as a kid. And a lot of the neighbors that had recruited, and maybe some of them thought they would, make money or be able to benefit from it, were saying, it's a nuisance because there's foxes and raccoons and there's a skunk and we don't like the canyons. And so I went there and I said, we like the animals, we like the skunks, we like the foxes. To the kids, obviously, that was a great experience. In an otherwise somewhat urban environment, where I grew up in Boulder is right at the edge of Boulder and right up against the mountains. But in San Diego, it was more urban, but that was kind of a beautiful area and great experience for kids growing up. So, that's part of my conservation ethic. It's certainly part of what drives this housing discussion. Is I'm worried about Colorado's open spaces. I'm worried about exurban sprawl. I'm worried about when you look at cities like Austin, what's happened, kind of infinite spread. I'm worried about Los Angeles. I'm worried about it taking, an hour to get across the metro area. So we really need to figure out a way that ties in living more affordably with sustainability and livability, reducing traffic, reducing the time to get places, making it more affordable and easier to live with, also a lower ecological footprint, less water use, less energy use, less land use. That's also very important for where we want to be as a state in 10 years and in 20 years.
So just to be totally clear about what this story was, you were, as an 11-year-old, you skipped school, apparently, according to the Independent, and you showed up at a city council meeting to speak against this condo development, and were so persuasive that the mayor and the city council said no to the housing development.
Yeah, I don't think it's a condo. I think these were multi-million-dollar homes they were talking about building there.
Is that a problem?
Oh, if it was condos, I would have loved it. No, just kidding. No, I like open space, of course. And what we're talking about with housing supports open space, because the biggest threat to open space is exurban sprawl, which under the status quo, I didn't think about all that as an 11-year-old, believe me. I just thought about the foxes and the rabbits and the skunks, which I liked. I still like them. And I still value protecting our ecosystems in Colorado. And that's another whole part of our work that we do. So you really ought to have my mom here if you want to hear about that. So maybe we can get her to do a podcast.
Maybe next time. So tell me how you got from that 11-year-old to these new ideas and how you're leading now on these issues.
Well, it's there's a whole suite of issues here. So we've had first of all, as a resident of the kind of the Northern Front Range, I have joined the frustration of most residents of our range that we voted for with fast tracks in 2002, a Northwest passenger rail, and have been paying taxes for it now for over 20 years, and it wasn't delivered. So that was a frustrating thing to me. And I as a congressman, I'd fire stuff in every now and then. I'd be like, why hasn't RTD done this, and what's going on?
Sorry, does that still bother you?
It still does. That's why we're solving for it.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. It was supposed to be open in 2017. That was the target date in the initiative. And now on their own, RTD would say, I thought it was 2040, but somebody corrected me and said it was 2050 is what they were looking at for the train. So we said not acceptable. So we brought several entities together And I'll give you an indication of that was kind of the easier part, but we brought together RTD, of course, because they have, to their credit, actually been sort of saving some money for what they're supposed to do and their future responsibilities. A front range passenger rail district, which we created in the legislature. They have the ability, when needed, to go for a tax increase if they want to in the region. Now, that's the entire Pueblo to Fort Collins region. That's northern Front Range is just a part of that. And then CDOT and our enterprise over there and the governor's office. We brought them all together to say, let's just solve for this. A couple things. We've done some polling on this. People in Colorado really want passenger rail transit. They're really excited about it. They're also very skeptical the government can ever provide it, rightly so, because it's way behind schedule and doesn't seem to be happening. So we are now, to show the difficulty of this task, I put my former chief of staff, Lisa Costin, who used to, run the state under me, and now she just runs passenger rail, and I think this is the harder job to get this done. So I'm proud to say that we will have mountain rail starting next fall. So in a year from now, we will have regular service to Granby. Eventually, that'll be to Steamboat year-round. Really exciting. Passenger rail, northern Front Range, Denver, Fort Collins, so Boulder, Broomfield, Longmont, et cetera. That will be by the end of 28. So we're really on track to do this at a very low cost, no new taxpayer money. There doesn't have to be an ask. With that and it's more the demonstration level. I mean, this will move a lot of people. But once we're running that, I'm very confident in the plan that people will say, wow, we want that, and the Front Range will vote for more of a comprehensive rail strategy, which other major cities and major metropolitan areas have. I mean, New York, Chicago. I mean, you can get where you want to go with passenger rail. In some cases, it's underground, but in the L is mostly elevated. That's why it's called the L, I guess.
So I want to talk to you about the train stuff in a minute, but I do still think people are curious how you got turned on to this way of thinking about housing and density and transportation. Was there an awakening? Was there something you read?
Well, I mean, we live in an apartment, but no, Colorado, it's too expensive to live here. I mean, it really just came from me looking at cost drivers. Colorado's a great place to live, good job market, like good schools. We have a good place to live, but it houses and living cost too much. And so I was saying, like, why? It's because we've mostly only allowed the more expensive houses to be built for decades in our state, and we've constricted supply, right? So price is a function of supply and demand. Demand is high because it's a great place to live. People want to live here. It's great. They have 300 days of sunshine, hiking, all outdoors. But we've artificially constrained supply. Right. And this has been something I watched for decades. I mean, Will Torr, now our head of our energy office, was the former mayor of Boulder. And one of his marquee accomplishments is he was finally able to get an operating protocol in Boulder for housing co-ops to exist. And there were 3 or 4 of them. And I remember visiting them when I was first running for Congress. Well, I think they were relatively new at that time in 2007. They were maybe a few years in. And it was very exciting that was an opportunity, right? It's about choice. Nobody has to live in a co-op, but should it be a choice we artificially restrict and don't allow? No. Boulder had an ordinance there. Unrelated people couldn't live together. I mean, this was offensive to me. I mean, why is the government saying who should live together? You have to be married, or you have to be conventional definition of a family. I mean, it's not for the government. I mean, this is like you live with people who you want to live with, right? And the government shouldn't say, oh, you have to be in this type of formal relationship. So that was another issue in Boulder. And we see Mayor Brockett's here has been a great champion. And under his leadership, Boulder got rid of the unrelated occupancy limit. And we now have a state law around this as well. So, I mean, these were things that I followed. I mean, obviously, it wasn't it wasn't necessarily the main driving force in my life, but I was always watching this stuff. And I'm very honored to be in a position to be able to do something about it now.
Well, it does seem like, especially now in your second term, you've made this a huge priority. Housing especially has been a big topic at the last 3 legislative sessions. I think, I read your speech in 2023 when you first set out this goal of the next 4 years. I want to make these progress. This is my 5-year vision. I wonder how you'd grade your own progress so far.
It was really interesting. The first year we brought it up, that would have been, I think, 2023 in the legislature. Everything flopped. Nothing happened.
I remember.
Yeah. And part of the problem was, like, legislators are like, what are you even talking about? Like, this was a new discussion. Like, they were like, what is this stuff? And it did actually go, it did actually pass the House. It died in the Senate. It did pass one chamber. We had all these bills bundled together, big, bold agenda. Two things, the next session where we got everything passed and we continue to move forward on this. There's a lot more work to do. For instance, we now have accessory dwelling units by right, but we want to move forward to make it easier to subdivide and sell them so people can experience ownership. We're still working on reducing zoning restrictions around nonprofits and churches, and we call it Yes in God's Backyard. It may need to have a rebrand, but we're focused on that. So we're all these things. But after that first year, we said two things we're going to do. One is we're going to break up these bills into pieces because they all have overlapping coalitions, but slightly different coalitions. So like some different people were for multi-family zoning by transit and we're for ADUs. And so let's just sort of divide this up, and there'll be different bills that legislators can own and run rather than have what we call an omnibus, together. And so that worked. And the second was, let's just educate people and let's empower local advocates. And as I said, the Boulder mayor and other mayors around the state, the state, including Denver, have often helped educate their legislators about it. Really just talking about also housing as a regional issue. I mean, it's got to be frustrating. We have, I think, 34 metro areas across, the commuting distance of Denver. So for any individual city, it's very frustrating because your housing market is part of the whole. So you can do everything right, but if your 6 neighboring areas don't, you're not going to really move the bar on housing costs because, an average Coloradan might live in one jurisdiction and cross 2 others and go to work in a third. I mean, and yes, each community has its own character, and Thornton is a little different than North Glen, is different than Aurora. But when you get a job, let's say in Denver, yes, you absolutely have the ability to look across 20 or 30 different cities for where you live. And to a certain degree, it's one integrated housing market. So regional, and same with Colorado Springs and many of its suburbs, same with Grand Junction and Palisades and Fruita. So we have several kind of major metropolitan job centers in the state. And it's important to look across jurisdictional lines and approach housing as an issue of state concern.
And this is, I imagine, why you signed the executive order earlier this year to condition some grant money for some of these municipalities to adopt the changes that you proposed at the legislature.
Yeah, what I remind people is the legislature was originally looking at actually withholding highway trust funds from municipalities that weren't following the law. I mean, the law of the state is the law. And when people of Colorado say we want housing to be more affordable, this is always another story I tell. It's not so much who does it, whether it's the president, whether it's the governor, whether it's the county commissioner, whether it's the mayor. People aren't really focused on who is doing more housing. They just want more housing that they can afford. And so let's get kind of these, fights out of the way and say, look, let's just provide it. I mean, we're thrilled that many cities are going well above and beyond the state. Like, I couldn't be more thrilled, for instance, that I think was Longmont the first city in the state to get rid of parking requirements for all developments in the city, right? We have a floor for that, but it was wonderful to see that. And if we can spark that discussion and get city councils and mayors talking about that and it's sort of a suite of best practices that can really move the bar at affordability, that's another role that the state can play.
Well, I think this question, though, is really core to the whole premise of abundance is who has the say, who has the control. And I wanted to read you a quote from Greenwood Village Mayor George Lance, who is one of the 6 municipal leaders who is suing you over the executive order I mentioned. Now, we're not going to get into the lawsuit's details. I'm sure you don't want to comment on those. But the quote I want you to talk about, he said, "We're seeing a steady erosion of our citizens' ability to have a voice in the communities in which they live." Is that true?
I'm going to give you the Republican conservative friendly argument for our reforms, which, by the way, there have been similar reforms in both red states and blue states that are also working on this. We are empowering the landowner. You own a plot of land. Your city shouldn't prevent you from subdividing it or building an ADU. That should be your right as a landowner. And if your municipality or your county is interfering with your rights as a landowner, they're really infringing on the right of property, one of the rights, of course, that our founding fathers fought the Revolutionary War over. So, now again, there's guardrails, of course. I think height limits are fine. All these types of things are fine. Public safety issues around construction are fine. But fundamentally, it shouldn't be your neighbor's business if you want to turn your home into a duplex and be part of the housing solution and have an ancillary rental property to help provide funds for your own mortgage. I mean, that's a personal decision, and the mayor of Greenwood Village should not interfere with your personal decisions.
Well, but here's what the neighbor would say. I don't want to live next to a duplex. Where am I going to park? Where do I put my car? All these people are going to live right next to me. There's no space on the street.
You can look. I mean, if your neighbor is not using all their parking, perhaps you can buy their parking spot. Getting rid of parking requirements is part of this. So we want parking requirements. Again, it's grounded in a market-oriented or conservative principle. I think it works across the board. Yeah, you should be able to buy the parking that you want. You shouldn't be forced to buy 3 parking spots if you have 2 cars, or forced to buy 2 parking spots if you have 1 car. And yes, there could be some developments where many residents want no parking because it's transit-oriented and they bike and they live right near rail and bus. So again, as an option to people, the only option shouldn't be you have to live in a single-family home 20 minutes from your job where you for a family of 4, basically need to have 2 cars. That's a way of life. And I'm totally for that way of life. If people want to have that, that's totally fine. But people have been pushed in that direction by the land use policy over the last several decades. So that has supplanted other ways that other people might want to live. And so this is all about leaning into your choice as an individual and how you want to live.
You don't feel like you're pushing people in the other direction?
There are, in any scenario, the vast majority of housing is suburban single-family homes in this state, and there's nothing to stop additional ones from being built. We've never tried to rein that in. We're just trying to say, provide more options that people actually want. Multifamily, near transit, near job centers, less time in commutes, lower cost of rent or mortgage so that you can afford to enjoy the great cultural resources that Denver has to offer or Colorado has to offer. Different strokes for different folks is what it's all about. If you want to commute 40 minutes a day and have 5 acres and goats and a horse, you're more than welcome to do it. People do that all the time. You shouldn't be forced to live 40 minutes from your job because there's no housing that's within walking distance or an easy commute.
This episode is brought to you by Denver Health. Denver Health has a secret, and now you can get in on it too. Denver Health Lean Academy has been guiding our city's healthcare organization for more than 20 years. Lean helps Denver Health provide great care through great systems. Great systems come from listening to the people who do the work and empowering them to make small improvements every day. Lean can teach your teams how to be more efficient, solve problems, and create a culture of continuous improvement. It gives teams the tools and training they need to enjoy a better workday every day. So, whether you're in healthcare, government, business, or even a different industry, trust Lean to work with your teams to improve the way they work. The Denver Health Lean Academy is available to organizations and individuals of all sizes. Transform your workplace today. Visit denverhealth.org/lean or check the link in our show notes.
This episode is brought to you by Denver Film, because movie lovers across the city are getting hyped. It's almost time for Denver's biggest celebration of cinema, and you don't want to miss it. I'm talking red carpets, celebs, Hollywood moguls, exclusive parties and VIP events, and you can be a part of it. Honestly, I've always had a great time at Denver Film Fest. Not only do they bring out so many good movies that you can just show up to basically a random theater on a Tuesday night on a whim and see something interesting, but you also have a chance to dress up nice, go out to a packed screening of one of the year's best, because they always bring the best. The Film Fest returns for its 48th year, running from October 31st to November 9th. They're featuring over 200 of the world's best new films, as well as all kinds of other great events. Choose your adventure and get tickets at denverfilm.org. That's denverfilm.org. So on this point of this Mayor Lance's idea of a steady erosion of citizens' voice in the community they live, I was talking to a friend, my friend Deep, who's had a theory about this. He thinks that Americans don't trust the government as much as they used to, and that's why people want to have these checks, like these environmental laws we were talking about in California, have these checks on the government to have extra times to say no, hey, don't do this project, hey, don't build this condo development in this canyon. Do you think that that's a problem? That the core problem of this is trust?
Well, I don't necessarily trust that mayor of Greenwood Village to be part of the housing solution for Colorado. I think that, trust individuals, take it down to that level. I mean, markets work in housing, right? And of course, no market is unconstrained. Obviously, to be clear, I value affordable housing. We value lots of different things in housing. But fundamentally restricting supply is, of course, going to increase costs. I mean, it's either of any good, including housing. So, yeah, when you prevent housing from being built, or somebody is going to build 80 units, and through all the city and planning, they negotiate it down to 30 units. Happens all the time. That's 50 less units, and so that's less supply. And so the aggregate result of less supply is an undersupply of housing, and costs have skyrocketed to live in Colorado, whether you experience that cost as rent or mortgage. And by the way, rent is great. People need a place to live. Of course, we value mortgage and ownership because that's wealth building. That's wonderful if we can provide those opportunities for people. And that's one of the reasons I was such an advocate for the condo liability defects reform bill. Apartments are great, but it's also great if we can provide starter homes and condos that are in our major metro areas, $200,000, $300,000, so people can get into own home ownership. Maybe some of them aspire to own a single family home for $700,000 in 10 years. Well, how are they going to get their nest egg together to do that if they don't experience ownership of a condo or ADU or something first? Or maybe they want to live that way the rest of their life, also fine, right? Different strokes for different folks.
I want to talk to you about trains a little bit more. We talked about it earlier. I was kind of, I guess I wasn't surprised. I've heard you talk about trains a lot. And that's the question. Why have I seen so many pictures of you on trains and so few pictures of you on buses?
I think trains are more photogenic.
I've seen a lot of great buses.
We've expanded bus service as well. So, obviously one of the things we want to do is help RTD become, an A+ transit agency. I really don't think they have been one. There's a lot of inefficiencies there. So there is an RTD reform group, and that's a whole nother topic. But the state has not let that hold us back. We have expanded rapidly. Bustang, Ski-Stang, Pegasus, long haul buses. Traffic has increased substantially. By the way, showing in an era where RTD traffic has decreased, we said the demand is there. Our state bus services we're running have skyrocketed in ridership over the last few years. Of course.
Across the state?
Because
I'm seeing RTD numbers are down year over year.
Yeah, no, our state transit, which is Bustang, Ski-Stang, Pegasus, have increased, I'd have to go several folds, certainly since I became governor. We offer more service, there's more riders, we're doing more, showing that the demand is there. So we want RTD to be a better partner in meeting the transit needs of the metro area. There are new transit districts in our state. There's a new one in Eagle County. We're very excited about that. We welcome all transit districts. We created some dedicated funding for them through different mechanisms at the state level. But I think you brought it back to, passenger rail. Passenger rail is very exciting as part of that as well. And that's one of the pieces that has been missing in Colorado. We've had light rail in Denver, one of the things RTD operates. But this would be intercity passenger rail that competes on time and cost of driving. And what does that mean? I think the current rail is 79 miles an hour, basically. So, Denver to Boulder or Denver to Fort Collins will be faster with rail. Denver to Boulder will be competitive with driving. Denver to Fort Collins will be a little faster with rail. So competing on time and then competing on cost, when you look at the cost of owning a vehicle, operating a vehicle, the gas, the depreciation, the parking, we want, and it will be that the passenger rail will be very competitive on that front too.
But RTD is crucial for this vision of density of housing.
You can't round them out. They're the biggest transit district. They need to do better. We need an A+. I'd be happy with an A- transit agency for the Denver metro. We have not had that. We've been continually frustrated. So I am hopeful that this new RTD reform group that is working towards optimizing performance for RTD will succeed, and we'll get some changes through the legislature. It's a construct of the state. The state created RTD. And we should. We have responsibility to the taxpayers that are in the RTD district to say we want to formulate RTD in a manner that will lead to operational excellence and success. Because a lot of this work we're talking about with housing and transit relies on having an A+ transit agency. The state is not going to fill that. We do some. We do the long haul, as I said, Bustang, Ski-Stang, Pegasus. We're thrilled. We're growing them. We're going gangbusters. But the state doesn't really aspire to, and we don't really have the mechanism to be the way you get from your house in Aurora to your job in Denver, or that kind of thing. And so that's what we need, A plus. But again, I'll be happy with an A- regional transit department to do.
The state does have some business in buses. I mean, I'm thinking about the BRT project on Federal. I think it's a CDOT project. There's a couple of BRT.
The capital part we build for it. Yeah. So we built. Yeah. So we did our North Highway 25 project example. We're adding in bus rapid transit lanes where we are doing major highway projects. So that's where we can. That's the physical piece of it. So yes, we are very accommodating on that. I'd point to the project 25 North where we have BRT now, and again, we actually run the service. The state runs the service, and many other examples. Well,
I would just bring it up because it segues to the next topic nicely, which is the last I heard about the BRT, the CDOT BRT project, is that it was in a little bit of limbo over a question of funding from the federal government. And I wonder, I mean, your position on President Trump is like, you say you want to work with him where you think there are opportunities to do the right thing for the people of Colorado. On the BRT thing specifically, do you have an update to give us on that money?
No, all I can say is there is a long litany of funding in limbo from the federal government, which some things there are, we are tracking, I think, 34 lawsuits. We have an entire unit of folks that are basically working on the different status of federal funds and how we can recover them or not. Pursuing new opportunities too, as I said. I mean, for instance, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is going to be adding 1,000 jobs in Fort Collins. We're excited about that. We're submitting our proposal for the rural health transformation grants very shortly. It's nowhere near the amount of money that all the states are losing because of the cutbacks in Medicaid. But of course, we're going to compete to get the funds that we can. But generally, obviously, many funds being cut off, some with legal recourse, some without legal recourse. We are aggressively looking at all of those to maximize support for Colorado. We kind of turned our unit that did that under President Biden, where it was more about attracting more grants, to more of a defensive posture now, where we're defending funds that have been awarded or are awarded to Colorado.
Are there any other ones you're worried about? People should know about?
Well, I mean, there's so many. I mean, we started with bigger ones. I mean, there's one we're watching, Solar for All. That one's over $100 million. But there, there's everything ranging from $1 million to $50 million to $80 million. So I mean, in the aggregate, we're talking many hundreds of millions of dollars. And we've also had some success where courts have ordered funds to be restored to awards that were already granted. And those projects are being funded. The Trump administration is complying with the court orders.
Another opportunity that I see that there might be some collaboration potential with the Trump administration is nuclear power. Because this year, after 3 years, Republican Larry Liston brought this bill to reclassify nuclear power as clean energy. You finally signed it this year. Why did you change your mind?
Well, I don't think I did change my mind. I've always considered nuclear energy to be renewable. In fact, this made it more explicit, which was fine. It was a bill that we frankly supported in previous years. I don't think it made it to me. It's not imminent. It's not part of our, obviously part of our 2030 plan, and whether it's even part of 2040 is somewhat conjecture. I mean, nuclear needs to be priced in a way where it pencils out and it works. I've been a stronger advocate for technologies that are here today, meaning geothermal energy. I'm hopeful that with some state involvement, help get them off the ground. I'm hopeful Colorado will have a geothermal electric production plant within the next couple of years that comes out of the probably 3 or 4 that are being looked at aggressively now and qualify for some of our tax credits. Other states have had that for years. I mean, you look at California, Nevada, Utah, they're 3, 4, 5% geothermal electric. We are 0% geothermal electric. And by the way, I'm excited that we're using it for passive heating and cooling and many other purposes, but I would like to see this part of our grid because it competes in that same space as coal and nuclear for that steady, firm power. The lower cost workhorses of the grid are always going to be solar and wind, but once you're in that 80 to 90% solar and wind rate and some storage, you do need some firm, steady power for 10, 15% to round out those peaks and valleys, depending on exactly what you're doing with storage. And of course, natural gas plays that role. But as we look to evolving past natural gas, I would look at geothermal, nuclear potentially, or significant reductions in storage would be a third way to go with regard to that.
So when you talk about nuclear being expensive, which is what I'm hearing from that sounds like a scarcity mindset to me. Whereas the abundance people would say, why don't we look to the potential? There's these companies out here in the free market. They say they can do it.
Potential.
Are we talking to them?
No, sure. I mean, we absolutely, Excel and other utility providers can absolutely contract for nuclear if anybody can sell it to them at a price that doesn't raise all of your rates. So the market mechanism is there for it to occur. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic that it will price out in some way. And by the way, Excel has nuclear on their grid, not for Colorado, but in Minnesota. So they are familiar with nuclear. Now, that's legacy nuclear, not new wave nuclear. But you look at new wave nuclear, smaller and modular, and some of the technologies being talked about. But unfortunately, and I think it's one of those things like flying cars, which is always 10 years in the future, right? So, I mean, I remember when I was like a freshman in Congress, probably 2009, there's this cool nuclear day at the Capitol. It's all this stuff, really cool, these cool modules. And it's all like, in about 10 years we'll have it. 10 years ago, 2018 didn't happen. Now it's 2025. And I mean, yeah, it's on the horizon. I'm hopeful. Let's make sure we have a regulatory landscape that absolutely allows it, facilitates it. I'm a long-term bull on nuclear power and its potential. But, we have a more pragmatic perspective. Yeah, of course, Excel should be able to contract for it. Every utility should. But it has to pencil out. We're not all going to pay more on our utility bills just so we can say we use nuclear.
Just because some people think it's cool now.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's lots of things. I think geothermal is really cool, but I don't want us to pay more just to use geothermal.
Right. So that gets to the next question, which is this politics question. I have to ask you this because it's something that comes up anytime you talk about abundance or any of these ideas, especially with Klein and Thompson. But why do you think that these policy ideas around housing and transit and energy seem to attract mostly nerdy white guys?
Is that the demographic here?
Anytime you talk about it, this is who you hear from. This is who wants to talk to me about it when I talk about the podcast.
No, I don't know. I mean, I would elevate more voices. I mean, I think when you talk about the promise of home ownership, low income, first generation, people of color are passionate about the opportunity to own a home someday, right? I mean, and some of them feel they might have given up and say, I will be, I'm likely to be a renter my whole life because there's not a home at the, with the money I make, I could afford maybe a $200,000 home, and there's not that equity opportunity in Colorado. People are smart. I think people would love to recognize the dream of home ownership. And it's great to elevate some of those voices and say, look, we don't need to act out of a scarcity mindset. We can and we should bring online different kinds of home ownership opportunities, condos, quadplexes, sexplexes, ADUs that are detached that can then be subdivided and sold for $200,000 to a first-time homeowner who doesn't have that legacy of home ownership in their family, who comes from a disadvantaged background.
Okay, one last question. We don't have much time. I think everyone here would like a little preview. Where do you see the opportunities for the last legislative session you'll have as governor in the winter and the spring? Where are the opportunities on housing, transit, and energy?
Well, we have Senator Amabile in the audience, so hopefully she will help, along with others, lead the way to additional work to remove barriers to housing that meets that intersection of the Venn diagram between affordability, livability, and sustainability. From an environmental perspective, lower water usage, lower energy usage, less traffic, less exurban sprawl. Livability, the quality of life that people want. Nobody really wants to be stuck in traffic 40 minutes every day, going to work, another 40 minutes going home. Maybe if your podcast is really good, they don't mind it because they just listen to it the whole way. And affordability. How do we create the kind of housing that Colorado needs for our residents, but also to compete in the economy? Like we certainly get our fair share of economic development and companies coming here, but when they choose another market, the reason almost every time say, oh, we love the quality of life, we love the talent pool, we love Colorado, but the cost of living there is too high for our employees, and therefore we're going somewhere else. So if we can conquer that, the sky's the limit. If we can really provide more housings in a sustainable, affordable, livable way for people, it's not only beneficial at the individual level, it's tremendously beneficial for the economy of Colorado. And that's why when we talk about these housing, it's really brought together a wonderful coalition, right? You have labor and business, you have environmental, You have kind of all of these advocates saying, yes, this is something we care about. Labor unions say our members want to afford to be able to buy a home and live. Businesses saying we need our employees to be able to afford to live in the state. Environmental advocates saying, yes, we value open space and don't want a future 30 years where there's infinite exurban sprawl across the Denver metro area. And so it's all of these forces coming together to say, yes, let's truly make Colorado an amazing place to live, work, and play, not just now, but for decades to come.
I don't know if I heard a specific in there. Give us one. Give us a bill you want to run in the spring, or a bill, one or two.
We're always relentless, so we haven't unveiled our full agenda yet, but it's no surprise. And Eleni Angelidis from my office is here, and John Moore, and they don't want me to break anything new today. But I think we've already said
they'll forgive you.
We are we're obviously coming back with a form of the Yes in God's Backyard that didn't make it last time. So we always start with what didn't make it the last time, and I'll share, an anecdote on that. We always thought this was a great idea. By the way, and we would have been the first to include school districts in that, and that was actually less controversial. We're certainly going to be including school districts. We're looking at kind of who else can be included in this. There was some skepticism from some on the Democratic side about the faith community, which I hadn't encountered before. I've shared with my mayor, there's a big faith community development right next to where I live in Boulder. I think it's great. It's exactly what Boulder needs. It's right downtown, and I think they're targeting 40 to 80% AMI or something like that. And it wouldn't be possible without the nonprofit and the church, because they're tax exempt, they have lower costs, and they're driven not just by making a return like commercial is. They're also driven by a social mission to provide housing. So I thought I embrace any partner who wants to do that. And of course, we have strong guardrails around non-discriminating and all of that. So we're going to figure out how we can work with some subset of nonprofits, whether it's some faith nonprofits, housing nonprofits, school districts, community colleges, to help them, empower them to be part of the housing solution. So that's in the works, and that's more or less public, because we said when it didn't happen last time, we were going to try again. And so if you're interested in helping with that, talk to Eleni and John. And I guess we'll be unveiling the rest of our agenda in the coming weeks and months. Speaker Basenecker, I'm sorry, is Representative Basenecker here. Thank you. He has been an amazing leader. I did say speaker because he is one of the people that might be speaker if the Democrats maintain the majority after the next election. But Andy I first met him, with Poudre Valley School District stuff when I was in Congress. He was active in the school district. He was where were you, on the Parents Council or something? Yeah. But he's become a tireless advocate of housing. And Fort Collins is a community like Boulder, like Denver, where it's just become so hard. And it's got to be one of the top issues you hear about from constituents. And people experience it in different ways. It might be you can't afford to live. It might be your 26-year-old daughter's living in your basement, and the parents say, when is she going to move out? It's because she can't afford to move out. So there's all different ways that this has experienced it. But he has really played a tremendous role in helping to lead a lot of this affordability work for our state. And him and Senator Mobley will, of course, continue to serve after my term as governor and continue to carry that torch forward on affordability. And again, thanks for really digging in on that, Representative Basenecker, and kind of getting up to speed on all of this amazing stuff that's happening on housing, because it's not just your community, it's not just Denver, it's not just Boulder. You see similar issues in Colorado Springs and Grand Junction, really across the state, and unique issues in the high country. We haven't talked about the high country, but when you think about the areas where Coloradans like to ski and play and hike, Eagle, Garfield, Pitkin, there it's a workforce issue where they cannot operate and provide the experience that attracts people from across Colorado and across the world without somewhere that people that work in restaurants or operate lifts can afford to live. And so it has slightly different dimensions to the Fort Collins, Denver, Boulder, Thornton, Westminster issue, but it's every bit as real, and in some ways even more existential for these communities that simply can't function without meaningful workforce housing. And that's been another initiative that we've partnered with the legislature on, and also really challenged our own agencies that own land, like the State Land Board that owns Dow Junction, to partner to develop housing to help meet the needs of our mountain communities.
Well, Governor Jared Polis, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Paul.
Have a good one. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell the CEO of TerraPower Nuclear to respond to my emails? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. And remember, if you love the show, you can support us and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then.